Hi there, and welcome back to Haunting Vales. Tonight's story begins on a stage, where an actress took her final bow and never spoke again. She was adored by thousands, yet no one truly knew the woman behind the painted smile. Her final performance was meant to be her greatest triumph, until the curtain fell and she was gone. When Hercule Poirot steps into the empty theater, he finds more than tragedy. He finds a script rewritten by fear, jealousy, and a secret someone thought would stay hidden forever, whose silence the voice the world came to love, and what truth hides in the echo of her last performance. Stay with us till the end. And if you love mysteries where the spotlight reveals more than it hides, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Haunting Vales. Chapter 1. The curtain rises. The lights dimmed. The murmur of the crowd fell away, replaced by the soft crackle of the film reel spinning to life. On the grand screen of the Regent Theater, shadows began to move, ghostly and silent. A world without voices, only gestures and music. The audience leaned forward, hypnotized by the flickering image of Vivien Leigh, the most celebrated actress of her age, and the woman who never spoke. It was the premiere of The Silent Promise, her latest picture. London society had filled every velvet seat, from titled ladies wrapped in pearls to men in tuxedos puffing on cigars. Cameras flashed like tiny bolts of lightning as the theater prepared to witness history. In the third row sat a small, perfectly dressed man with sharp gray eyes and a mustache as neat as a signature. Hercule Poirot. He had been invited by an old acquaintance, Sir Edward Grant, the film's producer, a man with too much money and a reputation for turning drama on screen into scandal off it. Poirot had no particular interest in cinema, but he had been promised something unforgettable. He would soon discover how true that promise was. The film began with a haunting melody played by the live orchestra below the stage. Vivien Leigh's image filled the screen, her face serene, her eyes enormous pools of emotion. She could convey sorrow, love, and fear with nothing more than a glance. The audience was entranced. Then it happened. In the final scene, Vivien's character is supposed to collapse, poisoned by betrayal. The camera followed her trembling hand as she reached for the glass of wine, lifted it to her lips, and drank. She swayed. Her eyes widened. She fell to the floor. The audience gasped, believing it to be part of the act. The orchestra played on, but she did not move again. Not when the reel ended. Not when the lights came up. Vivien Leigh was dead. There was a moment of frozen silence, the kind that lives in nightmares. Then a woman screamed. The musicians stopped mid-note. People rushed to the front as the curtains parted. Sir Edward Grant, pale as marble, shouted for help. A doctor from the audience pushed through, knelt beside the lifeless actress, and whispered the words that chilled everyone present. "She's gone. Poisoned, I think." Poirot was already standing. His calm, unhurried voice cut through the panic like a knife. "Please, MES," he stopped himself. "Please, ladies and gentlemen, remain in your seats. No one is to leave this theater." Every head turned toward him, the small man with the perfect suit and commanding eyes. Sir Edward ran over. "Poirot, thank heaven you're here. This can't be real, not tonight." Poirot's gaze rested on the body of Vivien Leigh, still graceful even in death. "I'm afraid it is very real, my friend," he said quietly. And it seems the final act was written by someone off stage. Within minutes, the theater was locked down. Police arrived, led by Inspector Harold Barnes, a practical man who respected Poirot's name, even if he didn't always understand his methods. Poirot observed everything. The glass of wine, the lipstick mark on the rim, the faint smell of almonds. Cyanide, unmistakable. But what intrigued him most was Vivien's expression. It was peaceful, almost knowing, as though she had seen her own death coming. Who poured her drink? Poirot asked calmly. Sir Edward hesitated. The prop master. The wine was from his set. We checked everything this afternoon. Poirot nodded. And yet, somehow, the poison found its way into that glass. Curious. Inspector Barnes took notes briskly. We'll get everyone's statements. Audience, staff, crew, the works. We'll have this sorted before morning. Poirot tilted his head. You are confident. I've dealt with poisonings before, Barnes replied. These film people, they're dramatic but not clever murderers. Poirot smiled faintly. You may be right. Yet, I have found that drama and death make excellent partners. By midnight, the body had been taken away, and the theater sat in eerie silence. The smell of perfume lingered where Vivian had fallen. Poirot and Barnes walked through the backstage corridors. The walls were covered in posters of Vivian's past films. The Golden Cage, Whispers of the Heart, A Promise Unspoken. Her face seemed to watch them from every frame. They reached her dressing room. Inside, the air was heavy with the scent of roses. The mirror was surrounded by small glowing bulbs, each reflecting Poirot's sharp features as he studied the scene. On the table lay a letter. Unsealed, unsent. Poirot lifted it gently. The handwriting was precise and elegant. To the one who will understand when I no longer can speak. He read no further. Not yet. Was she in trouble? Barnes asked. Poirot glanced at him. It appears so. The question, mon ami, he paused again, correcting himself. The question, my friend, is whether the trouble came from love or from fear. The next morning, the newspapers screamed the headlines. Silent Star found dead during premiere. Vivian Lee's final scene turned to tragedy. Reporters swarmed the theater. Crowds gathered outside, demanding answers. The studio announced that production would be halted indefinitely. But Sir Edward refused to cancel the film's run. Her last performance, he told Poirot, must be seen. It's what she would have wanted. Poirot looked at him steadily. Are you sure, Sir Edward? Sometimes, the dead do not wish their secrets displayed. Sir Edward sighed. Vivian was everything to this studio. To me, she was more than that. She was perfection. Poirot raised an eyebrow. Perfection often hides great imperfection beneath it. Tell me, was there anyone who wished her harm? Sir Edward hesitated. No one would dare. She was adored by all. Poirot's eyes softened, but his voice did not. Adoration, my friend, can be a dangerous thing. Later that afternoon, Poirot met with Clara Dean, Vivian's understudy. She was young, nervous, and still trembling from the night before. She was kind to me, Clara whispered. But lately, she was frightened. She said someone was watching her. Poirot leaned forward. Did she say who? Clara shook her head. No, only that she received letters, strange ones. She burned them after reading. I asked once why, and she said, because silence is safer. Poirot's eyes flickered. Silence. The name of her last picture. Curious. Clara hesitated again. There was one more thing. Yesterday, before the show, she looked at me and said, if anything happens tonight, remember, it was already written. Then she smiled, like she knew something I didn't. Poirot rose. Thank you, Miss Dean. You have been most helpful. When she left, he stood in the empty dressing room, turning slowly to face the mirror. Vivian's reflection stared back from an old photograph pinned to the frame. Her eyes alive, her lips closed forever. Poirot murmured to himself, the actress who never spoke. Yet perhaps she was trying to speak all along. He turned toward the letter again and read the final line. When the curtain falls, truth will still be waiting in the dark. Poirot placed the letter carefully into his pocket. The theater creaked around him, its old wooden beams groaning like the breath of ghosts. Outside, the sky was darkening again. A storm was gathering over London. And Hercule Poirot knew the performance was not over. It had only just begun. Chapter 2. The Face Behind the Screen. The storm that had gathered over London broke that night. Rain lashed against the theater's tall windows, washing the city in streaks of silver and shadow. Inside, the Regent Theater was silent once more. The lights were out, the audience long gone, but one man remained. Hercule Poirot. He stood in the center aisle, gazing at the empty screen where Vivian Leigh had met her end. The flicker of lightning illuminated the great red curtains, and for a moment he could almost see her there again. The poised figure, the graceful fall, the glass slipping from her hand. A performance that would never end. At his side, Inspector Barnes opened his notebook. "We question everyone, Poirot. No one saw anything out of the ordinary. The prop master swears the wine bottle was sealed. The makeup girl says Vivian did her own touch-ups that night. Even the pianist claims the same thing. Nothing strange." Poirot nodded slowly. "And yet, she is dead. It is the habit of death, my friend, to arrive precisely when all seems ordinary." Barnes frowned. "You think she was targeted?" Poirot turned toward the stage. "I think she was warned." He walked up the wooden steps to the set, his polished shoes echoing through the dark. The glass that had killed Vivian still sat upon the small table, sealed away now under evidence tape. Poirot leaned in, studying the reflection of the stage lights upon it. "She knew," he murmured. "She drank, knowing what waited in that glass. She accepted her fate before the eyes of hundreds." "Suicide?" Barnes asked. Poirot shook his head. "Non," he caught himself. "No." Her eyes in that final frame, they were afraid, yes, but not resigned. It was the fear of surprise, not surrender. Poirot spent the next morning in Vivian's dressing room once more. Every corner spoke of her life. Flowers now wilting, a silver brush with her initials, perfume bottles half empty. A stack of fan letters lay unopened in a small drawer. He opened one. The handwriting was elegant but firm. "You can act for the world, Vivian, but you cannot act for me." Another. "You belong to no one else. Remember that." And a third, written in the same hand. "If you ever try to leave, I will make sure your silence is eternal." Poirot placed the letters carefully on the table. His reflection met his eyes in the mirror. "So," he said softly, "the admirer becomes the jailer." At that moment, the door opened. Sir Edward Grant entered, pale and sleepless, his voice strained. "I can't believe this is happening, Poirot. The press won't leave me alone. They think I killed her for publicity." Poirot turned slowly. "And did you?" Sir Edward's face hardened. "How dare you?" Poirot's eyes narrowed. "I dare because I must. You see, Sir Edward, in every crime there are two motives, the one people speak of and the one they hide." Sir Edward's anger faded. He sank into the dressing chair. "I love her, Poirot. She was everything, but she was slipping away from me. She wanted to leave the studio, to go to America. Said she was tired of being told who to be." Poirot raised an eyebrow. "And what did you say?" "I told her she'd be nothing without me." He looked up, ashamed. "But I didn't mean it. I would never hurt her." Poirot regarded him silently for a long moment. "Love and possession are twins that often quarrel," he said at last. "Tell me, who else knew she wished to leave?" Sir Edward hesitated. "Only one man. Her screenwriter, Victor Hale. They were close, too close, if you ask me." Poirot nodded. "Then I shall ask him myself." Victor Hale's apartment was a dim, cluttered place filled with half-finished scripts and empty glasses. When Poirot arrived, Victor was pacing the floor, his face drawn and tired. "You think I killed her, don't you?" he said bitterly before Poirot could speak. "You all do. You think I poisoned her because she wouldn't leave with me." Poirot gestured to a chair. "Please sit. I do not think, I observe. And what I observe, Mr. Hale, is a man drowning in guilt." Victor's eyes darkened. "She was my muse, my soul. I wrote for her. She promised me we'd go away after this film. Start fresh. But lately, she changed. Frightened all the time, looking over her shoulder. Said she couldn't trust anyone, not even me. Poirot leaned forward. Did she say why? She thought someone was following her. Said she kept seeing a face in the crowd, always the same, always staring. I told her it was her imagination, but he stopped, swallowing hard. Maybe it wasn't. Poirot nodded. And on the night of her death, I saw her backstage before the film started. She hugged me and said, "It's almost over, Victor. After tonight, everything ends." I thought she meant the movie. His voice broke. I didn't know she meant her life. Poirot rose. Perhaps, Mr. Hale, she meant something more precise, that her silence would end, and that truth would finally speak. That afternoon, Poirot returned to the theater. The rain had stopped, but the air still carried the chill of tragedy. He stood on the stage once more, staring at the curtain. Something had been troubling him since the night of the murder. Something small, yet out of place. He walked to the table where Vivian had performed her final scene. His sharp eyes studied the faint outline left on the surface. 2 glasses had once sat there, not one. Interesting, he whispered. Poirot called for Inspector Barnes. Together, they spoke with the stagehands, who confirmed it. "Yes, sir," one said. "There were 2 glasses in the scene, but when we cleared the set, we only found one." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "And who removed the other?" The man hesitated. I think the pianist did. Said it wasn't important." "The pianist?" Poirot repeated softly. "Show me where he is." The pianist, Henry Cole, was a quiet man in his 50s with thin hands and tired eyes. He had played for every one of Vivian's films since her debut. "Mr. Cole," Poirot said gently, "you removed a glass from the stage." "Why?" Cole hesitated. "It was nothing, sir. I only wanted to tidy up before the police arrived." The prop glass looked out of place. "Prop glass," Poirot repeated. "You mean it was not the same as the poison one?" Cole shook his head. "No, sir. It was the glass meant for the other actor in the scene. He was supposed to toast her, but they cut that part during rehearsal." Poirot leaned closer. "And where is that glass now?" Cole swallowed. I threw it away, sir." Poirot's eyes hardened. "You what?" "I didn't think it mattered," the man stammered. "It was just part of the set." Poirot's voice dropped to a whisper. "Everything matters, Mr. Cole. Everything." He walked away without another word, but inside, his mind was alight. 2 glasses. One vanished. One poisoned. Was the poison meant for Vivian or someone else? That night, Poirot returned to his small London flat. The city outside was dark, the rain beginning again. He sat by his fire, the flickering light casting long shadows across his face. In his hand, he held Vivian's final letter. He unfolded it once more. "To the one who will understand when I no longer can speak. You build a world of silence around me, and now that silence will be your undoing." Poirot stared at the words, his mind turning like a clock. He whispered, "You build a world of silence," and suddenly his eyes widened. The world of silence, the film studio, the company that made her famous, the men who controlled her image, her voice, her life. She had been trying to tell him who had done it all along. He reached for the telephone. "Inspector Barnes, meet me at the theater tomorrow morning. I believe the stage is ready for its final act." The next morning, the theater lights burned bright again. Poirot stood center stage, flanked by Barnes, Sir Edward, Victor Hale, Clara Dean, and the trembling pianist. "Ladies and gentlemen," Poirot began, his voice echoing through the vast hall. "Last night, I watched this stage once more. I asked myself, what does it mean when a woman dies while pretending to die? And the answer came to me. It means that someone confused performance with reality." He turned towards Sir Edward. "You said Vivian was perfection. You controlled every word she spoke and every silence she kept." Sir Edward frowned. "You think I killed her?" Poirot raised his hand. "No, but you built the stage upon which the killer performed." He moved to the pianist. Mr. Cole removed the second glass, the one meant for the other actor. But that glass, my friends, was the real target. The poison was in both, for the killer did not know which she would drink. Poirot stepped closer to Victor Hale. You, Mr. Hale, gave her words to say, but perhaps you gave her one more thing, a reason to die. Victor shook his head. No, I love her. Poirot smiled faintly. I believe you. But love blinded you to the truth. The poison was not for her. It was for you. A shocked silence filled the theater. Poirot turned to the pianist. You, Mr. Cole, were once her teacher, were you not? Before she became famous? The man's face went pale. How did you? Poirot continued softly. You loved her long before the world did. And when she forgot you, when she became silent to you, you could not bear it. You planned to end her story on the night her greatest film was born. But you made one mistake. He stepped forward. You thought she would drink from the first glass. Instead, she switched them. She saw what you were doing, and she took your place. Cole's voice broke. No, she wasn't supposed to. I want to save her from them, from that life. She said she couldn't breathe anymore. Poirot's expression softened. She made her final performance, Mr. Cole, a performance of love. She chose silence, but in doing so, she spoke louder than ever. The pianist sank to his knees, sobbing. Inspector Barnes moved to arrest him. Poirot turned away, looking once more toward the screen. That night, as the city slept, Poirot remained in the theater. The film flickered again, showing Vivian's last smile. She never spoke, he whispered, but she said everything that mattered. The storm outside had passed, and in the soft glow of the projector's light, her image shimmered like a ghost, silent, eternal, and at peace. Chapter 3, the final scene. The theater was quiet again, too quiet, the kind of silence that seems to breathe, heavy, watchful, alive. The headlines had already spread across the city. Pianist confesses in the murder of silent star. Tragedy at the Regent. A final curtain for love. But Hercule Poirot was not at ease. Confession, he knew, was not always truth. And though Henry Cole had broken down, weeping over his guilt, there was still something about the story that did not fit. Something small, something offbeat, like a note held just too long in a song. Poirot sat in Vivian Lee's dressing room one last time. The mirror still bore her reflection in the photographs that framed it, the goddess of the silent screen, frozen in her eternal pose. On the table lay the last of her letters. Poirot had read each one, every word soaked in fear, longing, and something deeper, despair. He took out the final page again. To the one who will understand when I no longer can speak. His sharp eyes lingered on the ink, not printed, but pressed harder than the rest. The pen had bitten into the paper. A woman afraid, writing with force. You build a world of silence around me, and now that silence will be your undoing. He whispered the words aloud, and then it came to him, the sound that was missing. In every story told to him, in every statement, in every witness account, no one had mentioned hearing the orchestra stop playing before Vivian fell. The music had carried on until the very end. Why? Because the pianist knew exactly when she would fall. Poirot rose abruptly and walked out to the stage, his mind racing. The floorboards creaked beneath his steps, the sound echoing like distant applause. He stood before the piano. It was old, black, polished to a ghostly shine. Poirot's fingers touched the keys lightly, pressing one. The sound was pure, haunting, and hollow underneath. He frowned. Then, with a quick, decisive motion, he lifted the wooden top of the piano. Inside, tucked just beneath the strings, was a small metal tin. He opened it. Inside, a folded note. He read it slowly, his eyes narrowing with each word. It had to be her. She took everything. He promised me she would fade, but she never did. I made sure she would never speak again. Poirot whispered, He promised me. He looked up. His reflection stared back in the polished lid, but behind it he could almost see her. Vivian, her silent eyes begging for truth. Poirot turned toward the empty seats of the theater. Then it was not love, he said softly. It was jealousy and the lie of loyalty. By evening, Poirot had gathered them all once more. Inspector Barnes, Sir Edward Grant, Victor Hale, and a trembling Clara Dean, Vivian's understudy, who could barely look anyone in the eye. Barnes folded his arms. What now, Poirot? The case is closed. Cole confessed. He'll hang for it. Poirot's gaze was sharp. No, my friend. He will not hang for what he did not do. Barnes blinked. What are you talking about? He admitted it. Poirot nodded. He confessed to trying to poison her. But he did not succeed. The glass she drank from was not his. Sir Edward's voice broke through. Then who killed her, for God's sake? Poirot walked to the center of the stage, the spotlight now the only light in the room. He turned slowly, his eyes finding each face. It was someone who stood in the shadows. Someone who envied Vivian lean not for her fame, but for her voice. Or rather, her silence. Clara looked up suddenly. What are you saying? Poirot's gaze locked on hers. I am saying, Miss Dean, that you poisoned Vivian Lee. The room went still. Barnes froze, his pen dropping to the floor. Clara's lips trembled. That's absurd. Is it? Poirot asked calmly. You were her understudy, her shadow. You learned every move, every expression, every glance. But she never stepped aside. She never gave you the stage. And so, you gave her what she gave you, silence. Clara stood, shaking her head. You can't prove that. Poirot smiled sadly. But I can. You see, you visited the piano after the show ended, claiming to retrieve your handbag. Yet the pianist had already been taken away by police. And still, the piano lid was later found closed, locked. You placed a note inside, Miss Dean. You thought to frame Henry Cole. Her face went pale. You have no idea. I have every idea, Poirot said quietly. Vivian discovered your plan. She switched the glasses during rehearsal. But she could not bring herself to expose you, not after all you had shared. So she drank knowingly, letting death speak the truth she could not. Clara's eyes filled with tears. I just wanted to be seen, to be more than a shadow. Poirot's voice softened. And now, you will be remembered, but not as you hoped. She sank to her knees as Inspector Barnes stepped forward, placing a hand on her shoulder. Clara Dean, you're under arrest for the murder of Vivian Lee. The sound of the rain returned, faintly tapping against the theater's windows, a slow, tragic applause for a performance that had finally ended. Later that night, Poirot stood alone in the projection room. The final reel of the silent promise played, flickering through the darkness. Vivian Lee's face filled the screen once again, luminous, calm, and eternal. He watched as she lifted the glass, as her lips met its rim, as she fell so gracefully that it seemed choreographed by fate itself. And then that final smile, a smile that now, he realized, was not fear. It was peace. He whispered, "You chose your silence, madam. You made your final promise, and you kept it." The film ended. The screen went white. The light hummed quietly, and then faded to black. Poirot turned to leave, but paused at the doorway. For a moment, he imagined her voice, soft, elegant, calm, finally speaking after all these years. "Thank you, Monsieur Poirot, for listening when no one else could." He smiled faintly, closed his hat over his heart, and stepped out into the rain. The next morning, London awoke to a city cleansed by the storm. The newspapers wrote their final headline: "The actress who never spoke. Mystery solved." But for Hercule Poirot, it was not merely a solved case. It was a lesson whispered through time, that silence, when chosen, can speak louder than any voice. He walked along the quiet street, his reflection glimmering in the puddles, and thought of all the words left unsaid in the world. Even in silence, he murmured, truth always finds a way. If you enjoyed this mystery, don't forget to like the video, share it with a friend who loves a good twist, and subscribe for more Hercule Poirot mysteries. Tell us in the comments, what moment surprised you the most in the actress who never spoke? Your thoughts help bring the next case to life.